Good evening. As I've had the opportunity to speak with hundreds of Penfield residents, I've come to the conclusion that maybe I could be doing a better job of explaining to you all who I am and why I decided to run for town supervisor. I'd like to share with you two short but related stories that should give you a pretty clear indication of who I am and what you can expect from me as your supervisor. Before I get to the stories, let me give you a little background. Growing up, my family attended a Lutheran church in downtown Rochester. And through my college years and through my 20s, I attended other Lutheran churches that were near the places I lived. And that brings us to story number one. In the mid-90s, I took a sales job in Manhattan and began commuting into the city every day from my home in Orange County. One Sunday when talking to a church friend, he asked me the following question. He said, "Steve, how do you plan on succeeding as a salesperson and still maintaining your Christian principles?" Well, I had to think about that for a minute, but eventually I answered this way. I said, "I think it'll be harder in the beginning, but ultimately a lot easier in the end." The point is that in sales, there are a lot of opportunities to make a quick buck if you're not interested in honesty, integrity, and fairness. If these things matter to you, and they matter very much to me, it will take longer for you to see success in a sales career. But once you succeed, the customers who believe in you and your product are likely to stick with you. Good salespeople and good customers know that price is only one small component of value. After about 8 months, I actually did achieve success in that job, and I stayed in that job for a little over 2 years. But I eventually left it because I was asked to do something that I didn't feel was fair or ethical. And as a result, I couldn't stay in that position. And that brings us to story number two. Keeping in mind the question my church friend asked me, though, so many years ago, I had a bit of a deja vu experience when just a few months ago, after I'd launched my campaign for town supervisor, another friend asked me, "Steve, how do you plan on succeeding in politics and still maintaining your Christian principles?" And this time I didn't have to think because the answer was exactly the same. It'll be harder in the beginning, but I think ultimately easier in the end. Now, even though the question is slightly different, the point is exactly as it was before, which is that in politics, it's easy to get a vote by telling people what they want to hear. But if you insist on honesty, integrity, and fairness, it will take longer to earn each vote. But in the end, if you stand by your principles, it should be easier to maintain the respect of those who've supported you. I had an experience when out collecting signatures for my nominating petition that was both surprising and, to be honest, a little bit disturbing. When we walk around collecting signatures, we've got these lists that tell us the names of the registered voters, where they live, and what their party registrations are. So walking down this driveway, I was aware that I was about to knock on the door of 2 registered Democrats. When they came to the door, one of them asked me, "Well, who did you vote for president last year?" So without hesitation, I turned to them and told them that I had voted for John McCain. And one of the adults at the door looked very surprised and looked at me and said, "Well, you know we're both Democrats, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I know you're both Democrats, but that doesn't change my answer." And what was interesting about that is that they truly expected me to tell them what I thought they wanted to hear, as opposed to the truth. And this, I think, is really very indicative of what's happened with our political system. If the assumption is that everyone who runs for political office lacks honesty, integrity, and fairness, then it's pretty easy to see how people have lost faith in our system of government. As your supervisor, you have my word that every decision, consideration, and interaction will be rooted in the honesty, integrity, and fairness that every Penfield resident deserves from their elected officials. Between now and the election, I'm going to be doing 2 more videos. One on the appointment process and how it's gone horribly wrong in Penfield and how I'd do it differently. And one on this recent property assessment that we've been through and how it would have been done differently had it been done under my leadership. Thank you for your time, and I encourage you to get out and vote on November 3rd.